Imagine a world where the lights go out, not because we ran out of fuel, but because we ran out of friends. We are standing on the edge of the greatest industrial pivot in human history, and we are being sold a lie. A beautiful, comforting lie. You have been told that the energy transition is about saving the planet. You've been told it's about windmills, solar panels, and blue skies. You've been told it is a path to peace. But look closely at the map. Look at where the mines are being dug. Look at where the factories are being built. This isn't a transition. This is a mobilization. We are not moving toward a world of cooperation. We are sprinting toward a new era of conflict. The oil wars of the 20th century, the coups in the Middle East, the pipeline sabotage, the naval blockades, they were just the dress rehearsal. We are trading pipelines for power lines, and oil barrels for battery cells. But the game remains the same. The only thing changing is the weapon. The terrifying truth is that green energy requires more digging, more mining, and more physical control over the earth than the oil industry ever did. And right now, the superpowers of the world are realizing that there isn't enough to go around. We are walking into a trap where 5 specific resource wars are about to collide, triggering a geopolitical earthquake that will swallow entire economies. Some nations will become empires. Others will become colonies. And the scariest part? You are living in one of them, and you don't even know which one it is yet. Before we descend into the chaos of this new world map, take a second to arm yourself. If you want to understand the economic storms that are coming for your wallet and your future, you need to be here. Click that subscribe button, hit the like, and turn on notifications. We don't just report the news here. We analyze the collapse before it happens. Are you ready to see the future? Let's begin. To understand the first war, you have to understand the scale of the addiction. For 100 years, the global economy drank oil. It was messy, it was dirty, but it was efficient. You drill a hole, black gold comes out, you put it in a ship, and the world turns. But now, we have decided to electrify everything. Your car, your house, the grid, the trucks delivering your food. The heart of this new system isn't a liquid you can pump. It is a metal you have to tear out of the ground. Lithium. They call it white gold, but that's too soft a name. It should be called the new gunpowder. Here is the math that keeps Pentagon generals awake at night. To meet the targets set by the West for 2035, we don't need just a little more lithium. We need 4,000% more. That is not an industrial increase. That is a logistical impossibility. Imagine you are trying to bake a cake, but you need 40 times more flour than exists in every grocery store in your city. What happens? People start fighting in the aisles. The first war is happening right now in the Lithium Triangle: Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina. These 3 nations sit on top of the world's largest reserves. For decades, they were ignored. Now, they are being courted by every major power on Earth. But this isn't a polite business meeting. It's a hostage situation. In the old world, if you needed oil, you made a deal with the Saudis. You protected them militarily, and they kept the taps open. But the lithium market is the Wild West. China saw this coming 20 years ago. While the West was distracted fighting wars in the desert, Chinese state-backed companies were quietly buying up the Andes. They bought the mines, they bought the water rights, and they bought the politicians. Now, the United States is waking up to a nightmare. The U.S. has one active lithium mine. One. In Nevada. And every time they try to open a new one, it gets tied up in environmental lawsuits for 10 years. Do you see the irony? We want to save the environment with electric cars, but we can't mine the metal for the cars because we want to save the environment. Meanwhile, the competition is ruthless. In Africa, specifically the Democratic Republic of Congo, the situation is even darker. This is where cobalt lives, the other essential ingredient for standard batteries. If lithium is the gunpowder, cobalt is the spark. And 70% of the world's supply comes from one impoverished, chaotic nation. Who controls the mines in the Congo? It's not the Congolese. 15 out of the 19 largest industrial cobalt mines in the Congo are owned or financed by Chinese entities. They own the dirt. So when a politician in Washington or London says, we are going to build an electric future, they are leaving out the most important part of the sentence. They are building an electric future on rented land. They are building a house where the foundation is owned by their biggest geopolitical rival. This isn't just about prices going up. This is about leverage. What happens when the supply chain tightens? What happens when there is a shortage? Who gets the lithium first? The Chinese factory in Shenzhen or the Ford factory in Michigan? We are seeing the emergence of resource nationalism. This is a fancy economic term for a very simple, violent reality. It's our dirt, and you can't have it. Indonesia did this recently with nickel. They looked at the world and said, "We are done selling you raw ore. If you want our nickel, you build your factories here." This terrified the European Union. They tried to sue Indonesia at the World Trade Organization. But Indonesia didn't care. They know they have the leverage. This is the new reality. The Global South, countries in Africa, South America, and Southeast Asia, are realizing they hold the keys to the Western economy. They are no longer content to be gas stations. They want to be the mechanics. And this creates a flashpoint for war. If a country like Chile or Congo decides to nationalize their mines, to kick out the foreign companies and keep the wealth for themselves, how does the West respond? In the 1950s, the CIA would stage a coup. In 2025, do we think they will just send a strongly worded letter? The scramble for African and South American minerals is the 21st century version of the scramble for Africa in the 1800s. But instead of flags and colonies, it's contracts and debt traps. The first war is a war for the dirt itself. And right now, the West is losing. But digging the rock out of the ground is only step one. The second war is even more dangerous, because it's invisible to the average person. It's not about the mine. It's about the laboratory. Let's assume, by some miracle, the United States and Europe manage to secure enough raw ore. Let's say they find lithium in California and cobalt in Canada. They dig it up. They pile the rocks on a train. Problem solved, right? Wrong. You cannot put a rock in a Tesla. This is the refining chokehold, and it is the single greatest strategic failure of the Western world since the Second World War. Raw minerals are useless. They are mixed with dirt, clay, and other elements. To turn that rock into battery-grade material, it needs to be processed. It needs to be boiled in acid, separated at extreme heat, and purified to a level that makes pharmaceutical drugs look sloppy. This process is toxic. It is expensive. And it is energy-intensive. The West spent the last 40 years offshoring this dirty work. We didn't want the pollution in our backyards. We didn't want the cancer clusters. We didn't want the ugly smokestacks. So, we sent it all to China. We thought we were being smart. We thought, let them deal with the smog. We will keep the high-tech design jobs and the banking profits. It was a deal with the devil. Because now, China doesn't just do the work. They control the valve. Look at the numbers. They are terrifying. China refines 60% of the world's lithium. They refine 80% of the world's cobalt. And for some specific rare earth elements, the magic dust needed for fighter jets, wind turbines, and guidance systems, they control nearly 90% of the processing capacity. Think about that. Even if the U.S. military digs rare earths out of the ground in California at the Mountain Pass mine, which they do, they have to put that dirt on a ship, send it to China to be processed, and then buy it back. The Pentagon is literally dependent on its primary adversary to build the guidance systems for its missiles. If that doesn't sound like a collapse scenario to you, you aren't paying attention. This is the midstream war. It's the war for the refineries. And building these refineries isn't like building a Starbucks. You can't just pop one up in 6 months. A rare earth processing facility takes 5 to 10 years to build, billions of dollars in capital, and a generation of chemical engineers who know how to run it. The West has lost that talent. We have plenty of app developers and hedge fund managers. We do not have enough metallurgists. We stopped teaching it. China didn't. They have an army of engineers who have spent 30 years perfecting the art of turning dirt into power. So, while Europe passes laws banning combustion engines, They have no plan on how to refine the metal for the electric ones. They are legislating a demand for a product they cannot create. This creates a dependency that is arguably worse than the dependency on Russian gas. When Russia cut off the gas to Europe, it hurt. Prices spiked. People were cold. But gas is a commodity. You can buy it from Qatar or the US. It moves on ships. Refined battery metals are specialized. They are chemically specific. You cannot just switch suppliers overnight. If Beijing decides to restrict exports of refined gallium or germanium, which they have already started threatening, the entire high-tech sector of the West grinds to a halt. Not just EVs, smartphones, solar panels, advanced weaponry. The chokehold is tight, and the West is currently gasping for air. The scramble to build refineries in Texas, in Australia, in Germany is frantic. But they are playing catch-up in a race where the other runner has a 30-year head start. If mining is the foundation and refining is the frame, then the battery cell is the engine. This is the third war, the battery arms race. History tells us that whoever dominates the primary energy technology of the era dominates the world. In the 19th century, it was the steam engine. Britain mastered it, and they ruled the waves. In the 20th century, it was the internal combustion engine. America mastered mass production, and the American century was born. In the 21st century, the primary technology is the electrochemical cell. The battery. This is not just a car part. A battery is a storage unit for civilization. As we move to wind and solar, which are intermittent, the sun doesn't always shine, the wind doesn't always blow. We need massive grid-scale batteries to keep the lights on. The country that builds the best, cheapest, and most reliable batteries will be the Saudi Arabia of storage. They will export the ability to have a modern economy. Right now, that map is heavily tilted. We talk about gigafactories. A gigafactory is a massive facility capable of churning out gigawatt-hours of battery storage. China is currently building battery plants at a speed that defies logic. For every one battery plant announced in the United States or Europe, China is building 3 or 4. And they are doing it at half the cost. But the war here isn't just about volume, it's about the chemistry. The current standard is lithium-ion. But everyone knows lithium-ion is flawed. It's heavy, it catches fire, and it relies on those conflict minerals we talked about. The real arms race is for the solid-state battery. This is the holy grail. A battery that charges in 5 minutes, lasts for 1,000 miles, and never explodes. The laboratory that cracks the code on mass-producing solid-state batteries will hand their nation the keys to the next 100 years of economic dominance. Toyota is trying. Volkswagen is trying. QuantumScape in the US is trying. CATL in China is trying. This is the Manhattan Project of our time. The secrecy surrounding battery chemistry rivals nuclear secrets. Corporate espionage is rampant. Hackers are targeting these research labs daily. Why? Because if you lose the battery war, your auto industry dies. Think about Germany. What is the German economy? It is cars. Mercedes, BMW, Audi, VW. Their entire national identity and economic stability are built on the fact that they make the best internal combustion engines in the world. Piston engines are their masterpiece. But an electric car doesn't need a complex piston engine. It needs a battery and a motor. The complexity shifts from the mechanics to the chemistry. If Germany cannot build the best batteries, they become just another car assembler. They lose the value add. They lose the premium status. If the battery is 40% of the cost of the car, and you have to buy that battery from China, you are no longer a car manufacturer. You are a client. This is why you see the panic in the eyes of European executives. They are staring at the extinction of their industrial base. The battery war is a war for survival for the legacy industrial powers. They are fighting to stay relevant in a world that is rendering their expertise obsolete. And this industrial terror leads directly to the Fourth War. When you can't win by competing fairly, you change the rules. You stop trading, and you start fighting with your checkbook. We have lived through 30 years of globalization. We were told that free trade was the ultimate good. Open borders for capital, Open borders for goods. If China can make it cheaper, let them make it. If Vietnam can sow it faster, let them sow it. Efficiency was God. That religion is dead. The fourth war is the subsidy war, and it is the tombstone of globalization. When the United States realized it was losing the mining war, the refining war, and the battery war, it didn't double down on free trade. It panicked. And in that panic, it passed the most significant piece of economic legislation in decades, the Inflation Reduction Act, or IRA. Don't let the boring name fool you. The IRA is a declaration of economic warfare. It is a massive injection of hundreds of billions of dollars of printed money directly into the veins of the American energy sector. The rules of the IRA are brutal. It says to the world, if you want the American tax credit, you must build it here. You want the $7,500 rebate on your EV? The minerals better be from a friendly country. The battery better be made in North America. The assembly better be in the US. It is a giant vacuum cleaner, designed to suck investment out of the rest of the world and drop it into Texas, Ohio, and Georgia. And it's working. But it has started a war with America's allies. Europe looked at the IRA and screamed. They called it protectionism. They called it illegal. The French president flew to Washington to complain that America was stealing their factories. Why? Because a European battery company looking at the math says, if I build in Germany, I get high energy prices and red tape. If I build in America, Uncle Sam gives me $1 billion check. So, Europe is forced to retaliate. They are now scrambling to create their own subsidy packages to bribe companies to stay. It's a bidding war. Who can print more money to bribe the industry to stay on their soil? This is a race to the bottom. It creates a fractured world. The global market is breaking into blocks. You will have the American fortress, the Chinese fortress, and the European fortress, all hiding behind high tariff walls, throwing subsidies at their own industries. This drives up costs. It makes everything more expensive for you, the consumer. Efficiency is gone. Now, it's about security. We are paying a resilience premium. But the subsidy war isn't just about attracting factories. It's about killing the competition. The US and Europe are preparing to slap massive tariffs on Chinese EVs. They know they cannot compete on price. A BYD Seagull electric car from China costs around $11,000. It is well-made, efficient, and stylish. There is no American or European car company that can build a car for $11,000. It's physically impossible with Western labor costs and regulations. So, if you let the Chinese cars in, Detroit goes bankrupt. The German auto industry collapses. The only way to stop it is to ban them or tax them at 100%. We are moving away from "may the best product win" to "may the most protected product survive." The subsidy war is tearing apart the alliances of the West while trying to build a wall against the East. If subsidies are the shield, export controls are the sword. This is the fifth war, and it is the most aggressive. This is where we stop pretending and start actively trying to cripple the other side. We saw a preview of this with the semiconductor chips. The US looked at China and said, "You are no longer allowed to buy the most advanced chips. And you are no longer allowed to buy the machines that make the chips." It was a technological blockade, an attempt to freeze China's development in time. Now, the energy sector is entering the crosshairs. China has started to fire back. Recently, Beijing announced restrictions on the export of gallium and germanium. You might not have heard of them, but your digital life depends on them. They are critical for semiconductors, solar cells, and fiber optics. China produces 98% of the world's gallium. By restricting exports, they are sending a warning shot. They are saying, "Nice tech industry you have there. It would be a shame if it starved." They also restricted the export of graphite technologies. Graphite is the other half of the battery. You have the cathode, lithium/cobalt, and the anode, graphite. China dominates graphite processing. Imagine a scenario where tensions over Taiwan escalate. It doesn't even have to be a shooting war. Just a blockade. China could, with the stroke of a pen, cut off 70% of the world's battery material supply. The Western auto industry would cease to function in weeks. Factories would go silent. Workers would be sent home. The stock market would crash. This is the weaponization of trade. Integration, which was supposed to prevent war, has become the vulnerability. We are like two men in a knife fight who are handcuffed together. If one goes down, he drags the other with him. The West is trying to de-risk. That's the buzzword. It means we need to break up with China, but we can't afford to move out yet. They are trying to build parallel supply chains. Friend-shoring. Buying from Vietnam, India, Mexico. But these supply chains are incredibly complex. You can't just move a puzzle piece. If you move the battery factory to India, but the chemicals still come from China, you haven't solved the problem. You've just added a middleman. The fifth war is a game of chicken. Who can endure the pain of decoupling? The West relies on cheap Chinese goods to keep inflation down. China relies on Western consumers to keep their factories running. If this war goes hot, if the trade bans become total, the global economy fractures. We are looking at a level of inflation that will make 2022 look like a joke. We are talking about the end of the everything store era where you can buy anything you want, anytime you want. We are heading back to a world of scarcity. A world where access to technology and energy depends on which bloc your country belongs to. So, who dies in this new world? The sixth dimension of this conflict is the reshuffling of the global hierarchy. The energy transition is not just adding new players, it is subtracting old ones. Look at the nations that built their power on the 20th century model. Russia, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Venezuela. They are petrostates. Their entire existence is funded by the export of hydrocarbons. What happens to a petrostate when the world stops buying petrol? They don't just go quietly into the night. They destabilize. A collapsing empire is the most dangerous kind. As oil revenue declines over the next 2 decades, these regimes face an existential crisis. They cannot pay their armies. They cannot bribe their populations with subsidies. This leads to internal chaos, civil war, and desperation. A desperate Russia is a dangerous Russia. A bankrupt Saudi Arabia changes the entire security architecture of the Middle East. But the fall isn't just for the oil producers. It's for the industrial giants who refuse to adapt. Look at Japan. Japan bet everything on hydrogen and hybrids. They hesitated on full EVs. Now, giants like Toyota and Honda are scrambling to catch up. If they fail, the Japanese economy, which is already fragile, could face a death spiral. Look at Europe. Europe is energy poor. They have no oil. They have almost no gas. And they have very few critical minerals. They are the most vulnerable continent on Earth right now. They are swapping dependence on Russian gas for dependence on Chinese batteries and American security. Europe risks becoming a museum, a place for tourists, but with no industrial core. The old order, the G7 dominance, is cracking. The institutions built after World War II were designed for a world of American industrial supremacy. That world is gone. This power vacuum is being filled by the new non-aligned. Countries like India, Brazil, Turkey, and Indonesia. They look at the US and China fighting, and they say, we don't want to pick a side. We want to trade with both. These swing states are the new battleground. India is trying to become the new factory of the world. Brazil is trying to be the agriculture and mineral superpower. The geopolitical fallout is a shift from a unipolar world, ruled by the US, to a multipolar chaos. In this chaos, the currency of power isn't just the US dollar. It's the ability to secure resources. And speaking of the dollar, the energy transition is the biggest threat to the dollar's dominance in history. The petrodollar system worked because everyone needed dollars to buy oil. If oil becomes less important and minerals become more important, do we move to the electro-yuan? China is already pushing for oil and mineral trades to be settled in yuan. If the commodity trade shifts away from the dollar, the US loses its exorbitant privilege, the ability to print money without hyperinflation. The collapse of the old order isn't a theory. It's a mathematical certainty of the energy transition. You cannot change the fuel of the global economy without burning down the structures built on the old fuel. But where there is death, there is birth. The final aspect of this war is the rise of the mineral superpowers. We are used to looking at the map and seeing the power centers in the north. New York, London, Berlin, Tokyo. The future power centers might be in the south. Consider Chile. Consider Australia. Consider Indonesia. Consider the Democratic Republic of Congo, if it can ever achieve stability. Australia is uniquely positioned. They have almost everything. Lithium, iron, coal, gas, rare earths. They are the lucky country all over again. They could become an energy superpower, not just a mine. But the real wild card is the global south. For centuries, they were exploited. Their resources were taken for pennies. Now, they are waking up to their leverage. They are forming cartels. We might see an OPEC for lithium. A cartel of South American and African nations that sets the price of the battery metals. If they band together, they can hold the industrialized world hostage. Imagine a world where Bolivia has the geopolitical weight that Saudi Arabia had in 1974. It sounds crazy, but geology doesn't care about politics. The rocks are where they are. This shift creates a new kind of diplomacy. The U.S. Secretary of State isn't spending his time in Paris and London anymore. He's in Lusaka. He's in Jakarta. He's in Hanoi. The diplomatic map is being redrawn to follow the geological veins of the Earth. These new empires won't necessarily be military superpowers, but they will be choke point superpowers. They will have the ability to veto the global economy. And this brings us back to you. Why does this matter to your life? Because every device you own, every car you drive, and the stability of the money in your bank account is tied to the struggle. The inflation you feel? That's the sound of supply chains breaking. The volatility in the stock market? That's the market trying to price in the risk of war. We are leaving the era of cheap abundance. We are entering the era of strategic scarcity. The energy transition is not a free lunch. It is the most expensive, complex, and dangerous undertaking in human history. It will create winners. It will create losers. And it will create empires. Let's pull the lens back and look at the whole picture. The board is set. We have the raw material trap, the scramble for the dirt in the ground. We have the refining chokehold, the bottleneck of chemical processing controlled by a rival. We have the battery arms race, the industrial fight for the engine of the future. We have the subsidy war, the death of free trade and the rise of economic walls. We have the weaponization of trade, the active cutting of supply lines. We have the collapse of the old order, the decline of petrostates and legacy industries. And we have the rise of mineral superpowers, the new kings of the global south. These are not 7 separate events. They are 7 fuses leading to the same bomb. The climax of this story isn't in 2050. It's happening in the next 5 years. The deadlines set by Western governments, 2030, 2035, are approaching fast. The panic is setting in. When governments panic, they make mistakes. They seize assets. They block trade. They start conflicts. We are seeing the friction points heat up. The South China Sea isn't just about water. It's about the trade routes that carry the minerals. The Cobalt Belt in Africa isn't just about local politics. It's about who controls the uranium and the cobalt. The illusion that we can simply switch to green energy without geopolitical consequences is shattered. The Green Revolution is painted in camouflage. You need to ask yourself, is your country a player, or is it the board? If you are in the US, you are watching an empire trying to reindustrialize at gunpoint. If you are in Europe, you are watching a continent trying to survive without resources. If you are in the developing world, you are watching the giants come back to your shores, hungry for what you have. So, what is the takeaway? Should we be hopeless? No. But we must be realistic. The era of blind consumption is over. You cannot afford to be ignorant about where your energy comes from. The world is becoming more physical again. The digital cloud is supported by steel, copper, and lithium. The narrative of saving the planet has been hijacked by the reality of securing the empire. This doesn't mean the transition won't happen. It will. It has to. The technology is better. But the road there is paved with conflict. The resource wars are not coming. They are here. The price of your future is being negotiated right now in mines in the Congo, in refineries in China, and in boardrooms in Detroit. Understand the game. Watch the commodities. Watch the trade bans. Because in this new world, gold is just a shiny metal. The real treasure is the stuff that makes the world move. The map of the world is being redrawn right in front of our eyes, and most people are still looking at the old borders. Don't be one of them. If this video opened your eyes to the hidden war beneath the headlines, consider this the beginning of your education. There is so much more to uncover about the collapse of the old economy and the rise of the new. If you found value in this analysis, if you want to stay ahead of the curve while the rest of the world catches up, hit that subscribe button. Share this video with someone who needs to wake up. We are tracking the shift. We are watching the empires rise and fall. Thank you for watching. Stay curious. Stay skeptical. And I'll see you in the next video.